Hello again. It's now our third in a series of short videos about application lifecycle management, or ALM. I'm Tom Grant of Cutter Consortium, where I do research and consulting on application lifecycle management, Agile, and related matters. Now, last time we were talking about the definition of ALM. If you're building an ALM strategy, what is a strategy supposed to do? Well, we talked about the flow of value at a horizontal plane through the value stream, that was an essential part of application lifecycle management. But we also said that there needed to be a vertical dimension as well, that this is a multi-level strategy. And we're going to hear the word alignment quite a bit. And the way we brought it into the discussion was by saying somebody has to decide what's valuable. Somebody above the level of the software value stream has to say, these are the things that we're working on. Here's how we judge the value of it. Efficiency is great, but it's not everything. But how do we know what's valuable? And how do we know that what we're doing contributes to value, not just at the level of the value stream, but also at the level of the team and also at the level of various kinds of tools and methods and so forth that we adopt at a more individual level that individual team members may use. So to drive home this point, let's talk about a couple of examples. Imagine that we're building a brand new frequent flyer rewards program, and we're putting together the software components of it for the first time. We'd never had this program before. We want to follow the lean startup game plan. We want to get the software out there into the market as quickly as possible to get feedback on it. And we step back and look at the software as it exists today, and we ask ourselves, does this software really have value for the company in meeting those goals? Well, it depends, because we haven't said much about what the goals are. So maybe we're a company that is brand new and we've not really ever had a frequent flyer program before. This is a new experience for us, and maybe our business model is a little different from other companies, and therefore the frequent flyer program may have a different role than it would at a traditional big airline. So we want to make sure that we have a lot of feedback collection mechanisms, analytics, user feedback forms, whatever it takes in order to make sure that we get as much information as we can to learn what a frequent flyer program is supposed to do for a company like ours and whether or not we're actually doing it. Maybe we are an established airline that's had falling out with our customers. We've turned into, sadly, the Comcast of the air travel industry, and we need to have a great customer experience, and the software is going to play a big role in that, and therefore we're not going to emphasize the feedback maybe as much as, with limited time, limited resources, just a really fantastic user experience. If we take another example, we're a government agency. We're building a mobile app for the first time. We know that mobile innovation gives us the opportunity to release software more often. Someone raises the question, would the value of our software go up if we did release more often? Well, again, it kind of depends on the larger objectives of the organization. Maybe one of the key objectives of the organization is having a solid infrastructure, that we never compromise the security of the IT systems in place. We never have systems down, that there's a certain minimum standard for the reliability of government information systems that we have to follow. So if we're not really having a discussion with the technical architects within the organization to ensure that our mobile app isn't going to hammer the back end far more than expected, and then compromise maybe the reliability of those systems, then we've compromised the value of the software if we stream out updates too often. But maybe we need to show that as a government organization that we are more responsive to our citizens. We need to have a different expectation in their minds of how they work with government agencies like ours. And so streaming new software out there on a regular basis, and in the process demonstrating that we're a more nimble organization than people had thought, and also in the process showing that we are responding to feedback that we get from the taxpayers. That might be something that enhances the value of our software. So again, it all depends on this vertical dimension about aligning what we're doing with the larger corporate objectives. That value is really a function then of this alignment. The flow is important. Having a poor flow, an unreliable flow, is going to decrease the value, but it's not the definition of value. And we have to keep in mind, too, that ultimately what we're trying to do is a sustainable flow of value. And so what we're doing has to be something that is valuable to both producers, inventors in the software innovation relationship, as well as the adopters or our customers in this relationship. So we could kill ourselves trying to build something of enormous value, as often IT organizations do, of value for customers, and in the process cut too many corners, overheat the organization too much, burn people out, undercut the reliability of our estimates, increase our technical debt, do all sorts of bad things that undermine the value for the larger organization of which we're part. And we have to keep in mind then, whatever we do here has to have value for both the producer and the consumer. Now, what does this vertical dimension now look like? Okay, I hope by now you're convinced we need to talk about it, but what it looks like is the following. Certainly, there is the highest level in an organization. And I'm using corporate here to mean organizational level, which could be a government agency, it could be a university, it doesn't have to be a private sector company. That then should shape the role that software plays in achieving our corporate objectives. So therefore, immediately below the corporate level strategy is the portfolio strategy. What products or projects do we need to have? Which ones are not contributing to our goals? What's the life cycle for these? What's the maturity measure by which we judge whether or not something that is in our portfolio is worth investing in further? Then there's the value stream, which we talked about a great deal in our last video. All the activities across all the groups involved in defining, building, delivering the software that forms the portfolio components. Then we have the team level activities. So the value stream is a set of different teams, and we can have a strategy here about how the teams work, who's on the teams, what projects or products they're assigned to, and so forth. And then the level below them, various tools, methods, other things that don't necessarily benefit the team, or they don't prescribe how the team should all work. Certainly they do benefit the team, they should, but really what we're talking about here are things like a testing tool that really only helps the testers, a requirements tool that really primarily helps the people writing the requirements, or a particular software software development best practice that only applies to the individual developers, versus something like Agile that really is the description of how teams should operate. Now, this already implies that there is a prescriptive element to this hierarchy of strategy, that the different levels interact with one another, and these should be healthy interactions. They should contribute to the success of the levels above them. So we need to expand into a new market. That's our corporate strategy. To do that, we've figured out that we may need significant alterations to our apps. We may be new to Asia Pacific countries, but we know, people have told us, or people in our company might have had a little experience in this area, that you can't just take the web applications that you built for a U.S. and Canadian audience, and people in that region of the world are immediately going to find in them what they expect, something that fits their cultural expectations, something that fits their work habits in the countries where they operate. It's not simply a question of translating the software into this new language. We have to create a different kind of application flow and other elements of the customer experience. Now, when we talk about the strategy at the level of the value stream, we may say that value stream has to run pretty quickly and frequently. We need to be delivering the software often so that we are learning as much as we can about this new market and making adjustments as we go. That kind of means that our development teams have to be agile. It doesn't seem like there's an alternative to this kind of rapid delivery, that you can't do it without having agile teams. It seems like a must. And in the teams, we need to have some people who are really good at user experience, who can figure out what it is that's different about doing business in China, Japan, Malaysia, wherever, what needs to operate differently in the software for them to feel they're having a good customer experience. All of these guidelines have measurable elements to them. Certainly, at the highest level, we can see whether or not we're getting market share in Asia Pacific. And we can look at the portfolio level to see how often people are actually using these modified applications in these new markets. And maybe it actually is a new type of app. Maybe if we're going into Africa, we realize there are a lot of mobile users there. Maybe we want to prioritize building a mobile app for that market. We can see the frequency and reliability of our delivery at the value stream level, whether we are indeed pushing the software out as often as we can and getting the feedback at the pace that we need. We can look at the stability of the team velocity, that the agile teams are able to sustain not just a good velocity, but a reliable one, so that when we make plans about announcing great new customer experiences for the audience in Asia Pacific countries, that we actually can follow through with those promises. And we can measure the success of various UX experiments that we're doing, see how well we're doing at understanding these different audiences. We can also maybe measure the frequency with which we're doing the UX experiments, put a little discipline on ourselves about how often we're collecting data about what the audiences in Asia Pacific countries need. So everything here is measurable. We can put a number on alignment as a result. So I hope that sounds comforting. Even so, it doesn't necessarily mean that we see this as a totally manageable situation, because we could look at our own organization and have to sadly admit it might not be up to the job. It might not be able to deliver the software as quickly as we expected. It might be various barriers to agile adoption in the organizations. There might be problems at the portfolio level about resourcing or just monitoring the success of software adoption in these new countries. So if we want to really shake things up, we know how to do that. And this multi-level picture kind of makes sense, I think, better than a completely flat picture of how that disruptive innovation works. So we know often that Agile kicks off a whole chain of events in an organization where you have Agile teams that then really push for faster delivery, which leads to resolution of the DevOps problems, and upstream they might be adopting new ways of defining projects and ways of gathering requirements for projects. So we know that Agile is a good place to start, but it is only a team level methodology. But it will have an effect below that level of strategy, that it will make sense of various kinds of tools choices, for example, that we may or may not make. There are 100 tools a team may have looked at over the course of the last year, but if they want to really keep their Agile edge, if they want to be able to sustain a reliable velocity, maybe the thing to do is have an investment in automated regression testing tools, that we don't get ambushed by technical debt problems that should have been caught in regression testing, but we can't keep up with the amount of regression testing that we have to do. We can see that resolving any sort of frictions between dev and ops is a must, and maybe in the service of that, we adopt Kanban as a methodology for a collaboration between the Agile teams and non-Agile groups in the value stream, such as people in operations. We can see that Agile could have benefits at the level of the portfolio, that by having stable teams, we are able to stay focused long enough on the life cycle of some of the elements of our portfolio that then make it more possible for us to meet our portfolio objectives. We want to know how mature these efforts are in the Asia Pacific market to build these new modified versions of our web applications. We want to know, again, when it might be required to invest more in them or less in them. And we can then say for sure that software innovation is giving us what we need as an organization to adapt quickly to market realities, such as an opportunity in a new market or a competitive threat that we didn't have before. So this multi-level model really does kind of make sense of how disruption works within the software innovation process for organizations. I think now we combine the discussion in the previous video about the flow of value with this picture of a multi-level strategy in software innovation to really get a picture of what ALM really is. We haven't come up with a definition yet. We needed this sort of backstory here out of the way first. It's fair to say now that what ALM really is the orchestration of horizontal value flow across the value stream in strategic alignment. So there is both the horizontal and vertical parts of ALM in that definition. We look at the activities of the value stream. We might make them more efficient. We ask them if they're more valuable than they used to be. Well, that is again a question of alignment with higher level goals. We can look below us at the capabilities that we need in order to achieve those goals, make adjustments to them. But also, look realistically at what our capabilities are. How far can we go in improving the value flow through the adoption of particular team-level methodologies or tools or other things that might happen below the level of the value stream. And orchestration is an important term, as we'll see. It's an unfortunate part of the term ALM is the M part, the management part, which implies a kind of top-down way of handling ALM. And as we'll see in the next video, that's not what we're talking about. What should be clear is that also, too, that ALM is not a methodology and not a team-level methodology like Agile. Agile is not ALM. ALM may depend on Agile to achieve some of its objectives, but you can't say you have ALM by having Agile teams. And you also can't say you have ALM because you have ALM tools. Tools are at the bottom of this hierarchy of strategy, so certainly, we have the term ALM tool to describe tools that help people in different parts of the value stream, but they don't comprise a strategy for making that software stream of value function more effectively. They could help, but it's not the strategy. Now, drawing this picture, you might have felt a little overwhelmed. There's a lot of complexity there. I've drawn the different levels of strategy, the portfolio, the value stream, the team, the technical level. That might seem a bit overwhelming. Agile works really well because it just focuses on the team. Here we've introduced a concept that requires orchestration across the different levels. We need to provide direction down through these different levels. These are our objectives. This is your role at this level in achieving them. This is your role at the portfolio level in deciding what kind of products or projects we should be pursuing. This is your role at the value stream in determining how best to deliver those products and projects and so forth. We also need feedback coming up. What's working? What's not? When are we achieving the limits of what we can do at a particular level with a particular approach that we're taking? Is there more opportunity possibly than we anticipated for improvements at a particular level? We need to know this information, and so it has to be more than direction. It also has to be a constant set of feedback loops moving up through the ALM hierarchy. And we can't disrupt horizontal flow. We're supposed to be improving horizontal flow. And that's again where I want to kind of edge you as the listener here away from assuming what we're talking about is top-down sort of management, because management can, in that sense, can be very disruptive of flow. We want to keep the organization functioning as horizontally and efficiently as we can at the level of the value stream. Same for the teams, same for individuals within the teams. We don't want management, governance, and so forth to get in the way. It seems like a tall order. It's a set of requirements for having an effective ALM strategy that might seem a bit daunting, if not impossible. Well, let me tell you, there are other organizations beyond software companies, IT departments, and so forth that have figured out how to solve this problem. We can learn from them. And this diagram here is giving you a little hint of whom we're going to be talking about. But these are organizations under very extreme stresses who are very aware of the balancing act they have to achieve between top-down direction and bottom-up feedback, and keeping activity at any one particular plane humming along as well as possible, in a horizontal sense. So in the next video, we're going to talk about what we can learn from these organizations in the Putting It All Together segment of this video series. Well, thanks for listening. Look forward to speaking to you about putting it all together in the next episode.